right, so we're back for another deep dive. And today, we're going to be taking a look at Hong Kong's pretty ambitious plans to become like a global crypto hub.
Yeah.
We're looking at an article from crypto.news.
Okay.
It's called Hong Kong's SFC Ramps Up Crypto Oversight with New Staff.
Interesting.
It was published February 4th, 2025.
Okay.
And they're not messing around.
No. Cool.
They're really putting a lot of resources behind this.
I've noticed that, yeah.
Yeah, they're serious about this.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is that it's not just about like throwing money at the problem.
Right.
You know, they're being very strategic about it.
Totally.
They're really focusing on key areas like regulation and bringing in the right people.
Yeah, and speaking of bringing in the right people,
Yeah.
the article highlights the SFC, the Securities and Futures Commission, and they're planning to hire 15 new people.
Wow.
And what really struck me is that 8 of those positions are just for virtual asset regulation.
Wow. That's a significant chunk.
Yeah, that's more than half.
Yeah.
So what kind of expertise do you think they're looking for here?
Well, I think they're going to be looking for a mix of people with technical expertise and regulatory experience.
Makes sense.
So people who really understand blockchain and how these crypto markets work, but also who have a really strong grasp of financial regulations and compliance.
Okay.
You know, it seems like they're trying to build a more nuanced and sophisticated approach to regulation where they can protect investors, but also, you know, encourage innovation.
It's like they're creating like a special forces team for crypto regulation.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
They need people who can think on their feet and adapt quickly because this is a fast-moving space.
Absolutely. And this whole staffing increase also seems to be tied to something that they admitted in the article, which is that they've been struggling.
Oh, really?
To keep up with inspections of licensed firms.
Okay.
So they only did 200 out of a planned 300 on-site inspections last year. So what do you think? Is this a sign that they're feeling overwhelmed, or is it more about being proactive and...
It's probably a little bit of both.
Oh, okay.
You know, they're recognizing that this space is growing so quickly that they need to scale their operations up just to keep pace.
Right.
It's about catching up, but it's also about, you know, getting ahead of any potential problems and making sure they've got the resources to handle them.
Yeah, so it's not just about adding more people. It seems like they're trying to make the whole licensing process for these virtual asset trading platforms, or VATPs, much smoother. Yeah, the SFC is really trying to make this whole process easier for these platforms to get approved while still making sure that everyone's following the rules, you know? Yeah. And this is a really big change from how they used to do things. Right. It sends a clear signal that they want to make Hong Kong a good place to do crypto business.
It's a huge change, especially when you consider that it was only back in June 2023 that Hong Kong made that big decision to actually open up to retail investors in the crypto market.
Big step.
So this whole licensing system for VATPs was a big part of that.
It was.
It seems like they're going out of their way to make it easy for businesses to get up and running.
Yeah.
But how does this stack up against other places? Are they ahead of the curve, or are they just catching up?
Well, I think it's fair to say that they're being more proactive than a lot of other countries.
Okay.
You know, some countries are still trying to figure out what their crypto regulations should even look like.
Right.
But Hong Kong is taking action.
Okay.
They're creating this clear and transparent system. And I think that could give them a real edge in attracting both businesses and investment.
So it's interesting because by making the licensing process easier.
Yeah. They're kind of lowering the bar to entry for businesses.
They are, yeah.
So do you think that could lead to more competition?
Definitely. I think a simpler process is going to attract a wider range of players.
Right.
You know, from big financial institutions to startups, and that could create a much more dynamic and competitive market. Yeah. Which I think could ultimately benefit investors.
How so?
Well, it could drive innovation and maybe even lead to lower costs.
So it seems like they're trying to find this balance between regulation and innovation.
Yeah, they don't want to be too strict.
Right.
Because that could stifle things.
Right.
But they also don't want to be too lax.
Makes sense.
And become a magnet for all the wrong kinds of companies.
Like a Wild West situation.
Exactly.
And speaking of attracting businesses, the article mentioned that just recently, on January 27th, the SFC granted licenses to 2 more crypto exchanges.
Oh, wow.
Panther Trade and YAX.
Interesting.
Which brings the total to 9.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, it seems like it.
And businesses are responding.
Right.
This is a real sign that their strategy is working.
It's like they're sending a message.
Like, we're open for business.
Exactly.
And we're serious about this.
Yeah, we want to be the global crypto hub.
Exactly.
It's an exciting development for sure.
It is.
And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
For sure.
But with all this focus on bringing in businesses,
yeah,
are they doing enough to protect investors?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And it's one that I'm sure the SFC is thinking about a lot.
Right.
You know, they can't just focus on attracting businesses.
Right.
They have to protect investors too.
Right. And how do we even measure that?
Well, we need to look at a few things.
Yep.
First, what's the quality of the businesses they're attracting?
Okay.
Are these reputable companies?
Mm-hmm.
Do they have good track record?
Right.
Are they committed to following the rules?
Okay.
Second, how effective is their market surveillance?
Right. Are they catching problems before they blow up?
Mm-hmm.
And are they actually taking action against companies that break the rules?
Okay.
And finally, are they doing enough to educate investors?
Right.
Are they giving people the tools and information they need to make smart decisions?
Yeah. So these are all really important things to consider.
They are.
And we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on all of this as Hong Kong's crypto journey unfolds.
Absolutely.
But for now,
yeah,
we're going to need to take a short break.
Okay.
When we come back, we're going to be looking at the bigger picture.
Right.
The potential global implications.
Sounds good.
Of Hong Kong's ambitions.
I'm interested.
Could they really become the world's leading crypto hub?
Yeah.
And what would that mean for everyone else?
Big questions.
We'll be right back after this.
Okay, so welcome back to our deep dive into Hong Kong and, their goal of becoming this global crypto hub. Yeah, before the break, we were talking about Hong Kong's really proactive approach to regulation and licensing. They're trying to attract all these businesses.
Right.
But at the same time, they want to make sure investors are protected.
Yeah, it's like they're building this high-speed rail system for crypto businesses.
Yeah.
But they're also, making sure that everyone's got a ticket and that the trains are running safely. And
yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
It really captures that balance that they're trying to strike.
Yeah, too much regulation can stifle things.
Right.
Too little can lead to problems.
Right, chaos.
Yeah, exactly. And Hong Kong seems to be trying to find that sweet spot.
Yeah, but attracting businesses is just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
You also have to attract investors.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where Hong Kong's decision to open up to retail investors is really interesting.
Yeah.
By creating this regulated environment for these virtual asset trading platforms, they're basically saying, hey, retail investors, come on in. It's safe here.
Yeah, it's a really different approach compared to a lot of other places.
It is.
That are still kind of unsure about whether to let everyday people get involved in crypto.
Yeah, and I think that hesitation could end up hurting them in the long run.
How so?
Well, because retail investors are a massive market.
Right.
And Hong Kong is setting themselves up to be the place where they go.
So are you saying that Hong Kong is going to become like the king of the crypto world?
Well, I don't know about king, but they're definitely doing a lot of things right.
Right.
And the speed at which they're moving is impressive.
It's pretty remarkable.
It was just back in June 2023 that they rolled out this new licensing system for VATPs.
Mm-hmm.
And they've already approved 9 exchanges.
Yeah.
And there are probably more on the way.
It's like they're playing speed chess while everyone else is still trying to figure out how to set up the board.
It's a great analogy.
Right.
They're moving quickly. They're making decisions. And they're clearly committed to this.
Okay. But let's play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay.
What are some of the challenges or risks that Hong Kong might face with this whole thing?
Well, one potential challenge is the global regulatory landscape.
Okay.
Crypto doesn't really care about borders.
Right.
So what happens in other countries in terms of regulation, that's going to have an impact on Hong Kong.
So if other countries start cracking down on crypto, that could make things harder for Hong Kong.
Yeah, it could. It could make it harder to attract investment and talent. And another challenge is going to be maintaining that balance that we talked about earlier.
Right. between regulation.
Yeah, if they get too strict with their rules,
Yeah.
they risk stifling the very industry they're trying to help.
And on the other hand, if they're too relaxed,
right, then they might become a haven for scammers and bad actors.
then that wouldn't be good.
Which would obviously hurt their reputation and scare away legitimate investors.
So it's a tightrope walk.
It is, yeah.
And they got to be really careful.
Yeah, they're going to have to be adaptable and adjust their approach as things change.
Okay, so looking ahead, what are some things we should be watching for?
Well, I think one important thing is going to be the number of licensed VATPs operating in Hong Kong.
Okay.
If we see that number continue to grow quickly, that's a good sign.
Okay.
It means their approach is working and businesses are coming in.
So it's not just about the number of businesses, it's also about the actual activity.
Exactly. We need to look at the volume of trading on these platforms.
Okay.
If there's a lot of trading happening, that suggests investors are confident and comfortable with the regulatory environment.
So we need to look at both the supply side, the businesses setting up shop,
right,
and the demand side, the investors actually putting their money in.
Absolutely. And of course, we need to keep an eye on any major regulatory changes, both in Hong Kong and around the world.
Right, because that could impact everything.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot about Hong Kong and their ambitions.
We have,
and how they're trying to position themselves in the crypto world.
It's a really dynamic space right now.
Yeah.
And the next few years are going to be critical for them.
Yeah, to see if they can actually pull this off.
Exactly. And we'll be here to analyze it all, every step of the way.
All right, well, now I think it's time to shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
And talk about the potential long-term impacts of all of this.
Okay.
You know, what could this mean for the future of finance and the global economy?
Big questions.
Let's dive into that now.
Okay.
Okay, so we've spent this whole deep dive looking at how Hong Kong is really pushing to become like a major player in the crypto world, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And now I think it's time to kind of zoom out a little bit.
Okay.
And think about like the bigger picture.
Right.
Like, could this actually change the future of finance? Not just in Hong Kong, but like globally.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question.
Yeah, what do you think? Like, what are the possibilities here?
Well, if Hong Kong really pulls this off, I think it could have a ripple effect on the whole financial system.
Okay, so what kind of ripple effect are we talking about here? Like, be specific.
Okay, well, for one thing, it could set a precedent for other countries and regions to follow.
Okay.
You know, we talked about how Hong Kong is trying to find that balance between regulation and innovation.
Right.
If they make that work, other countries might start doing the same thing.
Okay.
And that could lead to more standardized global regulations for crypto.
Yeah, which would be huge.
It would be huge.
Because right now, it's kind of a mess.
It is.
Every country has its own rules.
Right.
It's really hard for businesses to figure out
it's a nightmare
what they're supposed to be doing.
Exactly. So if there were clearer and more consistent regulations, I think you'd see a lot more institutional investors coming into crypto.
Okay.
Because right now, a lot of them are hesitant.
All right, they're scared.
Yeah, because it's all so uncertain.
Yeah, and if you have more of those big institutional investors coming in, that brings legitimacy.
Exactly. It would make crypto seem less risky.
Right.
Less like just
more mainstream.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but couldn't this also lead to more competition?
Oh, for sure.
Like if Hong Kong becomes the main hub for crypto, what does that mean for places like New York and London?
Yeah, I think it could definitely create some tension. Or you could see a kind of crypto arms race happening with different regions trying to outdo each other.
Right.
But that competition could actually be good for the industry.
How so?
Well, it could push everyone to innovate more.
Okay.
To improve their services. To create a better environment for businesses and investors.
So it's not like a winner-takes-all situation.
Not necessarily, no.
Yeah.
It could actually lead to a more dynamic global crypto ecosystem.
All right, so that's the optimistic view.
Yeah.
But what about the potential risks here?
Right, good point.
What should we be worried about?
Well, one concern is that if too much power gets concentrated in one place, that could create vulnerabilities.
Like how so?
Well, imagine if there was a big regulatory crackdown in Hong Kong.
Okay.
Or a major cybersecurity breach.
Yeah.
That could send shockwaves through the whole crypto market.
Right, because everyone's relying on Hong Kong.
Yeah, so even in a more globalized crypto world, I think diversification is still important.
It's like they say, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
Okay. And what else should we be thinking about?
Well, another concern is that if one region becomes dominant,
yeah,
that could make inequality worse.
Oh, right.
You know, if all the best opportunities and services are concentrated in one place,
right.
that could leave a lot of people behind.
Yeah, and widen that digital divide that we always talk about.
Exactly. So I think it's really important to make sure that the benefits of crypto are shared widely and that everyone has a chance to participate.
So this is something that policymakers and industry leaders need to be thinking about.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so after this deep dive, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
Well, I think Hong Kong's story is a really fascinating one.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, it gives us a glimpse into a possible future.
Right.
Where crypto plays a much bigger role in the global financial system.
And those changes, they could have a huge impact on everyone.
Definitely.
All right, well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, we have.
We talked about the specifics of what Hong Kong is doing, and then we zoomed out and talked about the big picture implications.
The big picture, yeah.
And as always, we want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay.
So we talked about Hong Kong's potential to become like the dominant force in crypto. But what if other regions or even individual cities start doing the same thing?
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, what if we end up with multiple crypto hubs, each with their own strengths and specialties?
Yeah.
What would that mean for the future of finance?
Big question.
What would that mean for the global economy?
Yeah, we don't have all the answers.
We don't.
But hopefully this deep dive has given everyone some food for thought.
Absolutely.
And maybe even inspired them to learn more about this exciting and rapidly changing world.
Couldn't agree more. Well, hey, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, it's been fun.
We'll see you next time.
Sounds good.